Okay. Malawi for me was enriching, jarring, enjoyable, spiritual, and above all, transformational. And I so hope and really do believe beneficial to the orphans and vulnerable youth with whom we spend time. For me, Malawi was what in Celtic Christianity was referred to as a thin place. A place, a moment when the boundary between the visible material layer of our reality and the layer of God, the sacred, the spirit, becomes transparent, permeable, and we see and feel God's presence more nearly. God, the one whom the book of Acts hopes we might feel after him and find him. Yet he is not far away from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. All that was true for me of Malawi as a thin place to see and feel God's presence, with the exception of it not being far away, but it was worth the trip. It's not easy to make sense of a personal transformational experience for others, but let me offer a mix of facts and stories, since some grasp the meaning of things more easily from one versus the other. So here are a few facts. In about 2 weeks, our team traveled 1,400 miles by van in order to supply 6 feeding centers and faith centers out in the rural villages, help offer the mobile medical clinic at one of the centers, spend time in 2 crisis nurseries for orphans, and make all the shopping stops to buy supplies to deliver. We delivered over a ton of supplies: rice, salt, vegetable oil for cooking, soap, to the feeding centers, all purchased in Malawi. We also delivered medical supplies, children's clothing, and games to the nursery centers and the hospital at the African Bible College. These were largely brought with us from Phoenix to Malawi in the approximately 500 pounds of stuffed suitcases and boxes we checked in at the airport. And in Malawi, we purchased and delivered well over 200 Bibles. Last fact, we directly interacted with about 30 orphans in the crisis nurseries, 750 young people at the feeding centers in the form of vacation Bible study days and a youth day at the centers, and 350 people of all ages, but primarily adults, at the mobile medical clinic offering. Here are a few stories. Have you ever sat in the middle of about 15 crawling, some walking a little bit, orphans, held them, smelled them, all sorts of smells, played with them, ended up loving them and missing them? Another, Chris and I enacted the story of Paul and Silas and the jailer, with Pastor Manning being the jailer, in front of about 300 youth. Did not plan to do so in advance, only did it spontaneously. That was kind of tough for an introverted professor like myself, but probably even tougher for Chris Woodard, who a couple of times leaned over and quietly asked me, "Dave, have you ever even read the story?" as I continually messed up the story. Another, at the mobile medical clinic, Pastor Manning and I worked the front of the really long line of people, taking the temperature and weight of each one of them, as recorded then by Carmel. Since there were about 350 people, Pastor Manning and I each did about 175 folks, up close, in an incredibly intimate way, swiping their foreheads with the temperature reading device, weighing them on what was really the equivalent of an old-style bathroom scale, pulling up their skirts or pants a little bit to do so, to read the weight, to see their feet, looking into their eyes, truly seeing them, and looking at them under their dirt-laden clothing and skin, some of them looking hopeful, some of them looking anxious. Seeing one woman in pain, Carmel and I felt her shoulder. It was so dislocated, who knows for how long, and we sent her to the doctor. Another story, we went into the villages, well into the villages, to make a few home visits to their smallish earthen brick, thatched roofed homes, dwellings, to deliver a bucket of hope. Big bucket of some salt and soap and the like. You've seen them in some of our moments when we were describing things here at Valley. To have a moment of fellowship and scripture. One family, for example, was a blind woman tending to 4 children who lives with her. Then last story, I met my hero, Reverend Abe, a Presbyterian minister of the old Bandaway Mission Church in the upper part of Malawi, seemingly out in the middle of nowhere. Dust covered himself as well as the children who seemed so drawn to him. The church in an endless state of repair and building, it would appear. And I asked Reverend Abe, so how many members do you have? 1,200. So then I asked, okay, how many actually come on Sunday? 900 to 1,000. This is a guy that chokes me up when I talk about him. He has no salary, only a stipend, and the stipend is drawn from the offerings collected on Sunday worship. But first, those are sent to the synod, and then they decide how much goes back to Reverend Abe. So to supplement his income and the resources available for his flock, Reverend Abe actually buys and fishes for lake fish that he can then, when he goes on vacation to South Africa, sell to people there because they can't get lake fish there. I tell you, I would bet that $1 invested in Reverend Abe returns more people to Christ than anyone I have ever met. And we made modest contributions and gave him our remaining Bibles. I actually told this story and showed video of Reverend Abe to my dear friend and ex-wife and Episcopalian, Karen. And Karen was so moved by this that she has pledged $2,000 a year for 5 years to Reverend Abe. And that's a nice transition to what can we do next to support this mission effort in Malawi. One thing is, if any of you are ever thinking of gifting for Malawi, as a goal, try to beat an ex-wife and an Episcopalian. All right? I mean, you ought to be able to do that. But here's what I will do and what VPC Valley could do. I have to keep this feeling and action on my part going. So on the plane home, I wrote a vision statement for myself. I want to feel more every day like I felt in Malawi. And that means I have to think about how I spend my time. And is it spent on meaningful work? Who I spend time with? Is it positive people? And redefine my priorities and habits. For Valley and what we can do going forward, candidly, I'm not sure what to advise. The situation in Malawi overall, the situation in Africa overall, when you look at it, it's overwhelming. And you think, how do you make a difference? How do you turn it around? Indeed, can it even really be done? Now, on those questions, I recently was at a meeting of Opportunity International, and one of the speakers there was telling the story of years ago when he was on the streets of Calcutta with Mother Teresa, and he was looking at the poverty and the setting there, and then started thinking about, well, what's the rest of the city look like? What's the rest of the country look like? And he was asking the same questions I just posed. What really can you do? And Mother Teresa's answer to him was, just focus on what you see before you. I and Valley have now seen slices of life before us in Malawi. and I hope it will remain committed to serving those lives through a mission, vision, and specific strategies for action. A vision can be defined as a dream with a deadline. I would like Valley to shape a clear vision for our work in Malawi. Lastly, and certainly ever so importantly, I thank Valley's staff, the session, the congregation. I think we, all of us together, do make a difference in Malawi. Thanks.